I wanted to share some examples of the strength and surrender. I shared this balance of the whole, the strength in surrender in the previous video. And I wanted to just give you some examples from my life of how this is experienced. I named the pattern of the distortion, the imbalance. For one is stubborn, the rigid. And this is coming from resistance to change. One finds their identity in that stubbornness, that rigidness is resistance. And that's the extreme. That's the imbalance. Likewise, the other extreme is this passivity, where one has no spine. They don't stand for anything. There's a lack of structure. They're ungrounded. They're not rooted. They're simply a pushover because they're so passive. They're a doormat for others to walk all over. This is the other imbalance. This is the other extreme. So it's neither one or the other. It's about being soft and strong. It's not about collapsing. It's about containing. But in that containment, you're not stubborn. You're not rigid. You remain open. You find your strength in that openness where you don't collapse. You don't crumble under pressure. You don't back down because of fear. So some examples. Not too long ago, one of the services that I subscribe to for my business, Adobe, there was this plan that I was on for stock images, and I had about 480 credits on my account. I switched my plan, and overnight those 480 credits were wiped clear of the account after the customer support rep confirmed that they wouldn't be touched after making the switch to the plan. Instead of being passive and, oh, well, what can you do? I'll just go with the flow and allow that to happen, I gave the customer support a call. And after being bounced around in different departments, after climbing up the ladder of escalation to get this matter resolved, I was actually able to experience something that felt rewarding. It was a reward for being the embodiment of truth, being rooted in reality. We're standing my ground. And standing up for myself is actually standing as truth. They refunded me previous months, which accounted for a couple $1,000, which was equal to the credits that were lost, as well as giving me 6 free months free on the plan going forward, as well as discounting that plan by about $25 a month going forward. So what actually looked like a disaster was actually a blessing in disguise. But the reward can only be claimed through that integration, through that embodiment. If I simply allowed it to happen and was passive and took no action, which would be the distortion that I spoke of before, if I didn't stand my ground and I was a pushover, if I came at them swinging with aggression, anger, from a place of identity made of resistance, then I wouldn't claim that reward. And that reward is the realignment with truth. Instead of having thousands of dollars frozen in assets in an Adobe account, they liquefied those frozen assets and returned a couple $1,000s to me, cash in hand. On top of that, 6 months free going forward on the plan. On top of that, reducing the plan's price indefinitely going forward. So life unfolds miraculously like that. And that reward is for and from your integration, your embodiment. Life is simply realigning itself to the truth that you embody, and you're always rewarded. You might not see it at first, just like that example of having my account wiped clean of credits overnight and them refusing to reissue those credits the next day. The steadiness, the perseverance, while remaining open without collapsing, containing the power, having the clarity, standing my ground, being neutral, responsive, not reactive, flexible, open, allows me to handle that situation gracefully without being attached to any outcome. They no longer feel any force, but they feel my power. The situation arises and it falls. Whatever the outcome is, whether they reinstate those credits or they don't, I don't spend a minute thinking about it after. I don't lose any sleep over it. In the whole situation, I never once lost myself. I never collapsed. in the chaos, lost myself in the story, being so grounded, rooted, you remain balanced, stable, and they can feel that. And that's just one example. Other examples are in my intimate relationship with my wife, standing my ground, no longer tolerating distortion. You're always met with confrontation when you start standing your ground, because the part of you that was passive, and only passive, you became a pushover. So people in your life are used to you being a pushover. Once you stop being a pushover and you start rooting yourself and grounding yourself, finding your balance, your stability, and you are no longer thrown off balance, and you no longer are easily swept off your feet, you're no longer pushed over and walked over, that confrontation starts challenging, searching for the right word, it starts challenging the distortion, the distorted patterns, in a way most don't want to be challenged. Not because you're fighting, but because you're simply standing as truth. You become this mirror that then reflects the truth that you are, the truth that they are, but they also see themselves. They also see what they're not. They also see those distorted patterns, and they have to confront that. They have to face themselves. And that's the last thing people want to do, is face themselves. People fear the mirror. And by you embodying truth in your intimate relationship, you become that mirror for your partner. They have to look at themselves when you embody the truth without distortion. So when you are no longer that passive pushover, when you are no longer the stubborn rigidness that's resisting change, you become the clear mirror, the mirror of truth. And that is very confronting for people in your life. So your power in your yes is just as powerful in your no. And when you stand your ground in your relationship, you start feeling the power of no. You no longer tolerate things that you once did because you no longer abandon yourself. When you say no to your partner, you're saying yes to yourself. And this might be something that you're not used to, because living a life of abandonment and just simply going with the flow, you're living unconsciously. And when you start becoming conscious of this, and you stop going along with the plans of your partner in every situation, you're rooted in yourself. You're standing with a spine. And he or she will feel that. And they'll be confronted by you. And they will feel that it challenges this false structure, the patterns of distortion, the control, the power dynamics in your relationship. So that's another example. Another example is in my kids' school. Whether I'm a parent volunteer or just simply a parent of 3 kids going to the same school, I don't hesitate to stand up for fairness, justice in the school system. I don't tolerate distortion, especially when it comes to my kids. Whether this requires me writing an email to their teacher or an email to a director above, I will. I won't allow things to happen in front of my eyes. I won't, I think the word is, or the phrase is, won't turn a blind eye to things. Something like that. I'm not going to bury my head in the sand and pretend like it's not happening. But at the same way, I'm not going out of my way, sort of say, to find something to fight for. This is just simply the unfolding of life happening. And by not being passive or not being stubborn, set in your ways, you are living in your wholeness. And it's only through living in your wholeness that you experience the strength in surrender, where the two are inseparable. And this is what most people have not come to experience, especially the strength. There are few in the spiritual community that have tasted that surrender because they've come from the extreme of stubbornness, rigidness, control, letting go of control, softening, being flexible, opening. This is the feminine. But if this is all you know, then even that becomes an imbalance. It's not that you're too open or too flexible or too soft, but without the containment, without the groundedness, without the clarity, without the structure, then it remains an imbalance. So then it's the integration of the masculine, which comes from living life, which comes from returning to the relative, the mundane, the everyday life, changing diapers, cooking food, meals, taking your kids to school, going to work, running a business, that you come to integrate the masculine with that feminine. So you're no longer staying in extremes. For every extreme, there's a split. Instead of the division that you're either surrendered or you're active, this split between being and doing, you're experiencing the harmony of the whole, the being and the doing simultaneously, the surrender and the strength simultaneously, the rest and the activity simultaneously. You're no longer divided within yourself. And this is where the true power lies. It's the power of being whole, the integrity of being whole, undivided, without fragmentation, without division. So perhaps you have tasted the sweetness of surrender by letting go of control, letting go of your grip on life. And you've rested in yourself. But you feel that something is still missing. You feel called to express yourself. You feel called to be active in some way. You feel called to return to life. That calling to return, to sort of wake you up from that rest, that passivity, where you're no longer watching life pass you by, but you're being invited to live the life that you are. This is your call to integrate the two, so that you can live as the harmony of the whole and experience life in its fullness, where you're very active, but you no longer abandon yourself. The happiness, the love, the peace, the freedom that you are is embodied and expressed in every area of your life. Your creations, the way you move, the way you live, is a reflection of your wholeness, the truth that you are. If you're watching this, it's because you're ready. If you're watching this, it's because you resonate with this message. And this message, this transmission, is an invitation for you to return, not just to your wholeness, but to live as your wholeness, the wholeness that you are, the completeness that you are, the fullness that you are. It's not an invitation to step back from life. It's an invitation to step into life fully so that you can live the life that you are. If this message resonates, join me in truth.